Survival of the fittest. Sounds like it would work really good as a game concept. It turns out that it does. Today, GameRanks brings you the top 10 survival games of 2016. Number 10, The Black Death is a survival MMO set in medieval times, which, as you might be able to guess, ramps up the scariness of plague victims just a little bit, and in some ways feels very typical of a multiplayer survival game, but also manages to give you an atmosphere that just flat out cannot be beat. Does it have the best graphics of all time? No, but it does a great job of immersing you in the world. It feels very medieval, and essentially the concept of upward mobility, becoming more wealthy, helping you become more likely to survive the plague, combined with a good play style, and is well on its way to being a tour de force in the survival genre. Number 9, The Solus Project is a survival adventure game where you play an astronaut that has crashed their spacecraft on an uncharted alien planet and gives you a lot of factors to deal with when plotting for your survival, like thirst, hunger, body temperature, and weather. Your mission was finding a colony and figuring out a way for mankind to survive, but being the rest of your crew didn't, it may not be so easy. Number 8, We Happy Few, which anybody who's been aching for some kind of a BioShock anything, and count me among those numbers, is really one of the perfect things to fill that void. We Happy Few operates on a blending in mechanic and relies on a drug called joy, which allows you to see the world in a much nicer way. Did I mention it's a dystopia? I thought bringing up BioShock might automatically say so, but just in case. This story works as a great allegory for people who aren't willing to share any negative emotions, but present an incredibly positive and not necessarily entirely believable version of themselves. It also makes you paranoid. Number 7, Death Road to Canada is labeled a permadeath road trip simulator, which I gotta say was a creative way to get this thing funded on Kickstarter when they did that. It plays a lot like an action RPG, looks a lot like a retro beat-em-up, but at its core it's a procedurally generated zombie survival game. Don't let the fact that it can get a little bit cutesy walk you away from this one. This is a serious game. This game is incredibly fun and interesting, and even goes out of its way to include some Oregon Trail type decision-making stuff to really round out an incredible game. Number 6, Don't Starve Together is the multiplayer expansion of the incredibly popular roguelike survival action-adventure game that the developers initially believed impossible to make, but due to popular demand and an expanding team, were able to find a way for it to work. The game's been on early access, but the final version was released and supports up to 6 people playing together and contains all of the features of the single-player game. And what better game to play together than the incredibly tough Don't Starve. Number 5, The Flame and the Flood takes place on an almost completely submerged planet Earth, not unlike Waterworld, but with a little bit more land. The game places a lot of familiar survival elements, body temperature, health, hunger, thirst, etc., against a really unique art style, and manages to create a world that feels very different from most survival games, in that almost no other survival games can say that they have some influence from Huck Finn. Number 4, No Man's Sky. A lot of people thought this was going to primarily be an exploration game, but wow, it ended up being a lot more survival oriented than I think most of us expected. Now, I tried not to have any specific expectations for No Man's Sky, and I think that bolstered my opinion of it a little bit when I started to play it, because I really enjoy the survival gameplay. However, people looking for an exploration game might not view it exactly the same. However, with resource management, crafting, and basically the limitless expanse of planets, No Man's Sky is definitely an enjoyable game. Number 3, Escape from Tarkov, which to me comes off as DayZ with much better gunplay. In many respects, the gunplay comes off as well as most AAA specific first-person shooting games. It plays incredibly smooth. It places you in a survival situation in a fictional Russian city, obviously called Tarkov, and it's being called in its own way a spiritual successor to the Stalker games. Simply video of this game itself is exciting, and if you ask me, it's going to be one of the bigger games to beat. Number 2, Ark Survival Evolved essentially laid claim to dinosaurs in the survival genre, as well as creating a very good system for base building and stronghold-oriented survival play. It also takes place on a huge map, 48 square kilometers in size, and has you dealing with over 60 types of dinosaurs. The dinosaurs can be tamed and be made to do your bidding, and people who played it on early access have given it great feedback, so everybody waiting to play the final game on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, have a lot to look forward to. And finally, number 1, The Long Dark, which is one of the more stylish entries to this list. Developer Hinterland has come up with a really good formula for a sandbox survival game, with you, a pilot, having to survive in the frigid Canadian wilderness after a disaster has shaken the globe. Currently, sandbox mode is playable, and they're working on what is going to be called Season 1 of The Long Dark Story Mode, which looks to be starting later this year. And a few bonus games for you: Miscreated, which plays a lot like a streamlined DayZ, though it's slightly simplistic in graphics, does offer a lot of good gameplay. Fallout 4 Survival Mode, which is an add-on to the original Fallout 4 game that makes it significantly harder, adds permadeath, and requires you to manage various stats. And Starbound, a survival game that's going to make you think of Terraria, but it doesn't play anything like that. It's much more complex, though it does play as a sandbox game. Which survival game did you like most or are looking forward to the most in 2016? Let's meet in the comments and talk about that. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if you're not subscribed, now would be a good time to do so on account we upload brand new videos every single day of the week. The best way to see them first is a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on GameRanks.